Take a look at no, first I want you to look in Megillas Esther. You have it in the back of your book. Yeah, I got a reason for this. Where is it? Okay. Where's my glasses? Okay, I'll tell you in a second. Just 1 second. Just give me a second. It's not time yet anyway. Gimel. After Haman is invited to the party, it's in Perek Vav, and just give me 1 second. No, Perek Hay. Perek Hay. Okay, here we go. In page 1257. Now, I'm introducing this here for a reason. On page 1257, the background over here is where Haman has been invited to the party by Esther. This is the first party. And Haman's all full of himself because he's been promoted, he's invited to the party, and he likes what he sees in the mirror. And on the way home, Mordechai won't bow down. Everybody's bowing down, and Mordechai doesn't bow down. If you put it into proper perspective, what does he care? It's almost like a professional ball player who one of the fans is yelling at him for him to turn to one of the fans. Therefore, it's no class. You're up in the stands. I'm on the field. To go and take it up with the fan. You understand? You're reducing yourself. Imagine a politician and there's a crowd of people and one guy's yelling at the politician. He starts yelling back at the guy. I mean, you're the guy in the limousine, man. What are you yelling at him for? So Haman, he's got everybody bowing and everybody's like all the honor and all the accolades. One lousy Jew won't bow down to him, and that ruins his day. Look at what Haman says. It's in Pasuk Yud Gimel. It's about probably 13 lines from the top. It's exactly 13 lines, man. I am good. It's what he calls. Haman says in Pasuk Yud Gimel, he comes home and fetches to his wife. V'chol zeh einenu shoveli. He starts bragging about my money and all my everything that I've got. Then he says, none of this is worth it to me. B'chol eis asher ani roeh es Mordechai haYehudi yoshev b'shar hamelech. When I see that Jew Mordechai, it makes none of it's worth it. So I think the Vilna Gaon, if I'm not mistaken, one of the Meforshim points out, look very carefully at those four words. V'chol zeh einenu shoveli. V'chol zeh, the last letter of the word zeh is a hey. Einenu, the last word is a vav. Page 1257. Shoveh, the last word is a hey. And li, the last word is a yud. Which means you have what? You have Hashem's name written in the opposite direction, backwards. V'chol zeh einenu shoveh li. Hey, vav, hey, yud, instead of yud, k, vav, k. We say K instead of hey when we're saying it forwards. So now, what is Hashem's name? The Yud K Vav K name. What does that symbolize? Mercy. Well, if you take mercy and you reverse it, what do you get? You get, instead of Rachamim, what do you get? You get Din. You get Din. Haman at this point he's going after Haman. What Haman doesn't know is that right now his own attitude is causing to unleash upon him Midas Hadin, right? The Midas Hadin. Again, I'll show you. Did everybody see that? In Pasuk Yud Gimel, it says, V'chol zeh einenu shoveh li. You see those words? Nick, you see where that is? Show him on page 1257, Pasuk Yud Gimel. If you see it, show the person next to you, please. V'chol zeh einenu shoveli. Do you see that? Avi, you see that? On Pasuk Yud Gimel. V'chol zeh einenu shoveli. Now you look at the last word of the letter zeh, the second word on the Pasuk. V'chol zeh. The last letter is a hey. Einenu, the last letter is a vav. Shove, the last letter is a hey. And li is a yud. Now if you turn it and go in the opposite direction, you get a yud and then a hey and then a vav and then a hey, which is Hashem's name is written backwards. That means Midas Hadin has been unleashed on Haman. Now, why am I telling you this? Now turn to the Parsha. Turn to Perak Aleph, Pasuk Nun Aleph. In Bamidbar. And that is on page... what page is that? Bamidbar Aleph, what page? 730. Okay. Now, at the all the way at the bottom of the page, 46 lines from the top. Try me, boys. I can say it. You're not going to try it, right? If it comes out 46, then it'll look pretty good. Nobody's going to count it anyway. I don't know how many it is. 2 lines from the bottom. Uvin soa mishkan, when the Mishkan would travel, yoridu oso halavim. 732 lines from the bottom. Uvin soa mishkan, when the Mishkan would travel, yoridu oso halavim. The Levium would be the ones to disassemble the Mishkan when it was time to move. Uvachanosa mishkan, and when they camped, yakimu oso halavim. The Levium would be the one to put it up. Vehazar hakorev yumas. Hey, what's a zar? A zar is a non-Levi. A non-Levi who approaches it dies. Because it's only for the Levium to touch the Mishkan. And even Levium are not even Kohanim. The Levium do the Mishkan. And they take it off. Everybody's got a job in Klal Yisrael. The Zar, the non-Levi, he's not even allowed to come near the Mishkan. A non-Levi who approaches the Mishkan, whether it's disassembling it or assembling it, a Yisrael, he dies. Now, if you look in this Pasuk, look what you have over here, based on what I told you on the previous Pasuk. Take a look at, this is Dun Aleph, where is it? Uvin soa hamishkan yeridu oso halavim. Yeah. First you have, where is it? Oh yeah. Look at the last 4 words of the pasuk. Halavim ve'azor hakorev yumas. Look at the first letter of the word yumas. What do you have? Yud. Last letter on the pasuk. Last letter page, word on the page. Last word on the page. It's 730. 730, last word on the page. Yumas. What's the first letter of the last word? Yud. What's the first letter of the next word? Hakorev. What's the first letter of the next word? And what's the first letter of the next word? So there you have that pattern backwards again. Where does that pattern appear? When it says that a non-Levi approaches it, he dies. What's been unleashed? When you approach it and you shouldn't. What's unleashed? The opposite of Midas HaRachamim, which is why it's going backwards, which is Midas Hadin. So the non-Levi, this is where it appears. So and not only that, now move over to the 6th word from the end of the line. Yakimu. Do you see the word yakimu? Okay, what's the first letter? Look at the next word. What's in that to the right? What's the first word? Hey. Last word on that column is what? First letter? First word on the next line? Hey, and there you have it backwards again. Double warning over here. Let's not do anything when we pick it up. And the Torah says, when the Levium disassemble it, and when the Levium assemble it, both times any non-member of the club who comes near, Midas Hadin. Midas Hadin. Okay, that was entertainment. Now let's learn. I mean, that's also Torah. That's a remez in the Torah. Okay. Now take a look at Perek Beis Pasuk Yud Zayin, and this is on page 734. Okay. So the Torah tells us where everybody is going to be located. And it tells us the numbers. And then on page 734, if you look about 11 lines from the top. Close. Oh, dart. It's 10. Okay. Vinasa Moed Machane. You were waiting to say that, weren't you, Sam? You just wanted to know. Yeah. I didn't say anything on the 46, which means I was probably right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Vinasa Oel Moed Machane Levim Besocha Machanos. The Oel Moed, the camp of the Levium, would travel inside the other camps. Kasher Yachanu Ked Yiso, as they camp, so they will travel Ishal Yodo Lediglehem. Now, that means, remember last time we said there were 3, 3, 3, and 3. They were Jewish people were divided up, they were divided up into units of 3 on all 4 sides. Where were the Levium? They weren't included in that group. The Levium were, what the Torah says over here, Besocha Machanos. They were inside of the camps. They were within the camps. They were in the middle near the Mishkan. That's where the Levium were. Okay. Now, what one of the Farshim says over here is that the Levium were the ones who are Besocha Machanos. So there's an idea in Pirkei Avos that says a person should be Me'uravim Habrios. That a person should be, even if we are doing something different than other people, especially your former people from the previous life, but when you meet up with them, you have to be pleasant. You have to be me'uravim abrios. You have to, a person even is a ben Torah, somebody who's involved in Torah study. What were the Levium? They were the teachers of the people. So they're the ones who are carrying the Mishkan. They're obviously the ones who are involved in the holy work. But the Torah is telling you on a double layer of meaning, physically, they're besocha machanos. Physically, you're inside the camps. But also in your personal behavior, be among the camps, be among the people. Don't go off and separate yourself to go off. That means you have to be in the base medrash, you have to be learning, but you also have to exert an influence on those who are around you. That's what the Torah says, to mix in with the other people. Now, that's very dangerous in our day and age. Because in our day and age, to go and mix in with other people who are not involved in the same pursuits as ourselves, statistically, or what the results show, that the person who gets involved, it's easier to get pulled down than to pull other people up. So before one does get involved with former this, that, or the others, one must be very careful that he's not going to get pulled down. So what is our attitude? Our attitude is that on the one hand, we can't just risk our own ruchnius, we can't risk our growth and our ruchnius and our spiritual level. We can't risk it for other people. That we can't do. What we could do, though, is that they should walk away from us having had a pleasant experience. That's me, or that they should feel that was a religious person, that was a nice person, it was a pleasant experience. The idea of going out on the street and yelling Shabbos, right? It's very rare that people go, Shabbos! And a guy just stops his car and he says, wow, this is really a nice religion. Tell me more about it. You know, and I haven't seen this. I haven't seen that happen. Having said that, there is grounds. Let me ask you a question. What would happen if you're living in a residential neighborhood and you have children and a bunch of people come walking through your neighborhood? I'm using a very extreme example. A bunch of people come walking through your neighborhood without clothing and your children are outside. What would you do? You just fold your arms and not do anything? What would you do if a bunch of people came through the neighborhood with big signs insulting your mother? Well, you just fold your arms. In other words, or somebody would come through your neighborhood spraying, spraying pepper spray through the air, which happened in our neighborhood the other night. We walked out, Motzei Shabbos, I was telling my kids out of the garden, so our eyes are tearing. Somebody sprayed something because in the air. Well, if somebody would do that, right where your kids are, what would your reaction be? You'd be a little protective, right? Sometimes in life you're going to get aggressive, and rightfully aggressive. I don't say you should. I'm just telling you would. If Shabbos bothers you enough that you yell Shabbos, you're bothered at the same way if somebody's insulting your mother. That's how much it bothers you if somebody's driving through your neighborhood on Shabbos. And it's spontaneous. There's room for that in halacha. There is room for that. None of us, maybe I can speak for myself, I'm not on that level. So I don't go out to the street and yell Shabbos. Because if I would be out there in the street yelling for Shabbos, it'd be because I'd like action more than I care that much about Shabbos. I care about Shabbos, but it's not enough that it bothers me in my kishkes as much as somebody would insult my mother. And unless you're on that level, then you shouldn't be out there yelling Shabbos, number one. Number two, I'd rather eat jolt and take a nap. I mean, between me and you, that I enjoy much more. Take jolt, eat a nap, knock down some Jack Daniels, and go to sleep. That's much more fun than standing on the street. To throw stones, we're not talking about throwing stones at cars on Shabbos. There is absolutely no heter under, by any stretch of the imagination, to throw stones at cars on Shabbos. Even if you take the stone before Shabbos, that stone is muktzah. Because some people say, I am designating this stone for Shabbos use, right? Cowboying, that doesn't work either. And there's no justification for throwing stones. To yell in protest, it really depends where it comes from. And in certain situations in halacha, it's actually okay. We are not of that camp. But there are people who are of that camp who are on that level to do it. Just realize, and not everyone, but just realize there is certain grounds for it. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that not always is it we're trying to bring people near. Sometimes the first way, I'm just protesting. If people would come walking through your neighborhood without clothing, my goal isn't to be makar of them to clothing. My goal is to protect my children at whatever cost it takes to get this out of here, get the schmutz out of here. That's the difference. Sometimes I'm protesting Shabbos because, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm not thinking about we are. Anyway, I'm not going to be makar of them. They're driving away too fast. There was one Hasidic Rebbe who whenever he would see a car driving on Shabbos, there's a Hasidic Rebbe, he would yell Mazel Tov. So somebody said, what's Mazel Tov? He said, well, obviously if they're driving, it must be a woman who's about to go to the hospital to give birth. It must be life-threatening. Otherwise, why would be driving on Shabbos? So he'd stand over a road in Tel Aviv where people are driving all over the place. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Yeah, what Jew would drive on Shabbos? That was his attitude, to put it in the proper perspective. Okay, now take a look at Pasuk Yud Ches. Degel Machane Ephraim. The camp of Ephraim. Now we're back to the regular Jews. Let's see Vosam Yama. V'nasi livnei Ephraim Elishama ben Amihud. Now, one of the Farshim says there's something very strange here, because it goes to the camp of Ephraim, and it talks about where's Menashe was earlier on with Ruvain. If you look earlier, it's Degel Machane Menashe, wherever it is. But what it doesn't say, which it normally says, is Lemate Yosef, Lemate Ephraim. Normally, the Torah, when it introduces Ephraim or Menashe, it says from the tribe of Yosef. Remember, Yosef was split into two. And we find several times in the Torah that Yosef, whenever it talks about Ephraim and Menashe, it's associated to their father Yosef, who was then divided into two tribes. Yet over here, Yosef's left out of the picture. The camp of the Machane Ephraim. Why is Yosef not appear over here? So the Mefarshim say like this: these degalim, these flags, are a sign of prominence. And this is it's like you put on a uniform. I don't know if you guys have ever worn a uniform. I don't care if you were part of the high school band, or if you're a policeman, or if you're a soldier, if you're on a basketball team. When you put on a uniform, how do you feel? You feel good. You're proud of yourself. I'm in uniform, even if you're working at McDonald's, right? You put on a uniform. I'm a McDonald's guy. You feel good. A uniform picks you up. The camp over here, the Degel, is a sign of prominence. This is our team. This is our group. This is our flag. This is us. So the Mefarshim say, why is Yosef left out? And the answer is that there's a little bit of a claim against Yosef. Yosef here is left out as a consequence of something that he did sometime earlier. What did Yosef do when the brothers came down to Mitzrayim? He locked them up. He put on a whole charade, all for a good cause. And at one point, he said, when they stole the goblet, so Yosef says to the brothers, the quote is, Yosef says, well, don't you know Isha Sher Kamoni, a man like me can be able to tell and be able to see what's going on. With my abilities, I could see through you. And that means Yosef, in the charade, what did he say? Isha Sher Kamoni, a man like me. He promoted himself. Now, why was he doing it? He was doing it because he had only L'Shem Shemayim. He had a whole plan how to do it. Oh, Yosef, you used a little bit of self-aggrandizement, a little bit. What sounds like haughtiness, a little bit of gaiva. Oh, you lose out over here. When the Jewish people are divided up, and the Torah lists them in their stage of prominence, you lose. You're not mentioned by the prominence. Why? Because he said, but you needed to say it. Okay, but you should have figured out a way to do it. You know where else we find this? When Esav comes in, the minute Yaakov leaves, there's a medrash that says Yaakov was hiding behind the door. Esav opened the door, and Yaakov, who just finished stealing the bracha, was behind the door. Then Esav closed the door, and Yaakov snuck out. And when Yitzchak says to Esav, oh, shame, your brother already came and took the bracha. What is Esav's reaction? What does Esav do? Do you remember? He gave crying. Vayitzak tze'aka gedola. He gave a loud roar. There used to be a cartoon called Peter Potamus. Do you remember Peter Potamus? He was a hippopotamus. You never saw Peter Potamus? And he would give what they used to call a hippo hurricane holler. It's so sophisticated. You guys are so deprived. You never heard of Peter Potamus, hippopotamus? Yeah, you never heard of Peter? Okay, older. Well, whatever it is. So you missed some deep intellectual stimulation. But he used to give a hippo hurricane holler. Esav gives a scream. Who's taken to task for Esav's scream? Yaakov Avinu. And you know when the payback is? Back in the Megillah again. In the Megillah Esther, when the Jewish people and Mordechai finds out there's a plot against the Jewish people, that Haman has promulgated a decree against the Jewish people, what does Mordechai do? He goes out to the middle of the city, and Vayitzak Mordechai tze'aka gedola omar, a loud roar, a bitter scream comes from Mordechai. Said Chazal, you know why Mordechai ended up in that situation? Because generations earlier, Yaakov triggered off a yell by Esav. I mean, Esav was not a good guy. Esav was, what do you call it? Esav he was no good. Yet you caused Esav, Yaakov Avinu, you caused Esav tsar, you caused him pain, so your children are going to have that pain. Mordechai's going to yell. I mean, do you understand what's going on over here? What did you do? You didn't even do anything. Hey, what did Yaakov do? His mother said, go in and take the bracha. You know, what's the claim against Yaakov? You did what you were supposed to. It's not my fault. He gave me a bracha. He yelled, and now you're blaming me. What do you want from me? What's the answer? Yaakov, at your level, you should have figured out some other way to do it. Some other way that Esav isn't going to end up yelling. Don't know how, I'm not Yaakov. But you should have figured out so your children yell. You understand what the responsibility? You know, the Gemara says if you do something that's kind of unsightly, and somebody is grossed out by what you do, you're accountable for that. You're accountable for that. You spit or you do something and somebody else is watching you, well, yeah, you're accountable. You gross somebody out. But I had to spit. What do you want? Well, figure out some other way to do it. You don't have to do that here, and you don't have to do it that way. You don't have to do it that loudly. You have to figure out how to do it, and you're accountable for that. So Yosef here is accountable. There was a little edge of haughtiness in Yosef in the wording that he used with the brothers, therefore he's left out over here by the prominence. It has to be kept in a proper perspective. You know, have you ever heard of Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky? Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky was one of the Gedolei Ador, and he was the chief rabbi of England, of London. And there was apparently, I think there was it was either that the English were trying to, I don't remember if they were trying to ban shchita. It was like they did just now in, what do you call it? Belgium is always on the shchita roll. Now they're on the bris milah rampage. They're in Belgium, they're trying to stop the Jewish people from doing bris milah. But in England, there was shchita. The shchita was a ritual slaughter. Bris milah is circumcision. So there was a trial of some sort. He ended up in court. Whatever the case was, he ended up in court. And at a certain point, the British judge, he was on the witness stand. And the British judge said, I would like to get the opinion of the supreme halachic authority. So Reb Chatzkel Abramsky said, Your Honor, I am the supreme halachic authority. So he said, Rabbi, a little humility. And Abramsky said, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm under oath. That means humility does not mean a denial. That's who you want the supreme halachic. I'm the supreme halachic authority. But at a certain level, at a certain time, you cross a line, and then there's going to be accountability. That's what happened to Yosef Atzadik. Rav Moshe Feinstein, who was the most humble person, he was known for his humility, like Moshe Rabbeinu, who he was named after. When Rav Aaron Cutler was nifter, Rav Aaron Cutler was the leader of the American jury in the 60s. And when Rav Aaron Cutler passed away, so there was a meeting of the Rabbanim in America, and everybody, about some issue, and everybody expressed an opinion. And Rav Moshe Feinstein expressed it. People started arguing with him. And Rav Moshe said, when Rav Aaron passed away, he said, I'm going to be the leader. This is my opinion, I'm the leader, and therefore this is what we're going to do. Right? That means there's certain times where you have to know who you are. And if you're the leader, and you have to be able to say, I'm the leader, that's not haughtiness. The definition of gaiva, the Gemara says that an arrogant person, even his own family members can't stand him. Gemara says that what do you call it? The quote, I have the quote written down. Man di yahir afilu inche beise lo miskabel. Somebody who's boastful or somebody who's haughty, even his own family members can't stand him. Don't get too big-headed over here. I remember reading about a guy who won an Oscar. He won the Best Actor Academy Award. I don't remember who it was. So he came home. He came home to his family. He wasn't married. He came home, and he put the Oscar prominently on the kitchen table. Everybody was asleep. It was late at night. And he put the Oscar prominently, and then he went to sleep to crash out because he didn't get much sleep. He woke up the next morning after the entire family, and on the kitchen table there was his father's bowling trophy and his younger brother's little league trophy and his mother's baking trophy, and everybody had their own little trophies next to his trophy. Like, let's keep it, okay, so you got a trophy. We also got trophies. It's not the most important thing in the world. Frankly, the Academy Award is probably the least important thing in the world. But at the end of the day, don't get carried away with it. Okay, take a look at Pasuk Chav Gimel. I'll show you something enchanting. Benny, you're going to like this. On page 734, just to show you, this just shows you that every word of Torah means something. It looks insignificant, it looks trivial, and there's endless depth in it. Take a look at page 734. Sam, how many lines from the top is it? Pasuk Chav Beis, and here you over there. So it's about 11 lines from the bottom. He's counting. There he is. He's counting. For sure he's counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Oh, nice. 1 to 1. Umate Binyamin. 11 lines to the bottom. Pasuk Chav Beis. The tribe of Binyamin. V'nasi livnei Binyamin Avidon ben Gidoni. Okay, that's the tribe of Binyamin. And his what do you call it? His nasi is a man named Avidon ben Gidoni. Utzva'ov kudeyam, how many people are in the tribe of Binyamin? Chamisha u'shloshim elef, 35,000, ve'arbameos, 35,400. Okay, a number. Anybody want to tell me the significance of that number? 35,400. Anybody got a significance on that number? What is that, 35,400? What could that possibly be? Okay. What was the section, and when the Jewish people came into the land of Israel, every tribe they were divided up into sections. You guys have been on Tiulim, you go up to Dan, the Dan region, all the way up to Banyas, that's up in Dan, that's the only thing I know. And then you have Yerushalayim, which is Judea, where Yehuda was. And where was Binyamin? Binyamin was right next to Yehuda. And what was built in Binyamin's portion? The Beis HaMikdash. The plot thickens. And what did the Beis HaMikdash provide for the Jewish people besides spirituality? The lechem hapar. Right. But what's that? Atonement, for sure. What else did it bring? You had the showbreads. There were 12 showbreads in the Beis HaMikdash on the Shulchan. Well, what happened with those showbreads? What did the showbreads represent? The 12 breads, which correspond to 12 tribes. What did the 12 breads represent? Obviously, prosperity. And when you give a bracha, the bracha comes down from Shemayim onto the breads and it spreads out to the Jewish people. Brachas, you have to have some sort of physical receptacle. And it comes out onto the showbreads, and from there, it spreads to the Jewish people. So the Beis HaMikdash, on the one hand, was the source, it's the place of atonement. On the other hand, the Beis HaMikdash is also the place of blessing for the Jewish people. How many blessings do you make every day, gentlemen? How many are we supposed to make? I didn't say sorry. Let me rephrase the question. Not how many do you make, how many are we supposed to make? 100 brachas a day. Okay, how many days are there in the year? 365 according to the lunar calendar. According to the solar calendar, which we count as how many? 3 solar calendar, we lose 11 days to the lunar calendar. 365 minus 11 is how much? 354. He's on a roll. And now if you take 100 brachas a day and you multiply it by 354, what do you get? Take a shot, take a stab at it. I look at it, he's on a roll. 300, you get 35,400. And where is that blessing? In the tribe of Binyamin, where the Beis Hamikdash was. What a coincidence. How do you like that? So the 354,000, 35,400, which corresponds to Binyamin, which is 100 blessings a day, times 354, which we're supposed to be making. And the source of all that blessing ultimately is the Beis Hamikdash, which is in a portion of Binyamin. Okay. Now, take a look at Per Gimel, moving right ahead, moving right along, and on Pasuk page 736. And the Torah says over here a very important concept that we are misunderstood by our fellows who are not yet religious. And it says like this in the middle of the page. Ve'ela told us Aaron and Moshe. Now these are the descendants of Aaron and Moshe. B'yom diber Hashem es Moshe b'Har Sinai. We've talked about all the other Jews and all the other camps, all the Levium, the regular Jews. Now what about Aaron and Moshe? Ve'ela shmos ar b'nei Aaron ha-bechor. Everybody see where I am? 736, right in the middle of the page. Everybody see that? Eila shmos Aaron ha-bechor. Take a look at that word bechor, gentlemen. Ha-bechor. What does a bechor mean? What's a bechor? No, bachur is with a ches. That's a young man. Bechor is a firstborn. Makas bechoros. Now look at that word bechor. Beis chaf reish. What does a bechor get that the others don't get when there's an inheritance? What does he get? A double portion. How do you look at it like that? I'm not a bechor, by the way. The bechor gets a double. I'm a Kohen, but I'm not a bechor. Now, he gets a firstborn. Now take a look at the letter ha-bechor. The hay is obviously just in the bechor. Take a look at that word bechor. It's an interesting word. What's a beis? How much is the numerical value of a beis? 2, which is exactly double. 2 is double of what? 1. Good. Okay, we're good. Look at the next letter. Is a chaf. How much is the numerical value of a chaf? Chaf is 20, which is exactly double what? 10. Jeremy, keep it up. And the last one is a resh, which is 200, which is exactly double what? 100. That means the bechor gets a double portion. The essence of the word bechor is double. Each letter in the word bechor is exactly double of the letter before it in the aleph base. Aleph gets a beis after it. Yud gets a chaf after it. Kuf gets a resh after it. Each one of the essence of the bechor, that's his double portion. Now look what the Torah says about him. These are the sons of Aaron, the bechor Nadav. And then he has Va'aviu, Elazar, and Isamar. Aaron had 4 sons. Eila Shmos b'nei Aaron HaKohanim. These are the names of Aaron the Kohanim and Meshuchim who were anointed. Asher milei yadam lechahenu. They were charged to be Kohanim. And then it says Vayamas Nadav Va'aviu. Okay, Va'aviu died. We learned about that. But look at the first two psukim. Why does it repeat it, gentlemen? Ve'ela shmos b'nei Aaron. These are the names of the b'nei Aaron. Habechor, Dovid, Elazar, Isamar. And then the very next pasuk says, Eila shmos b'nei Aaron. I mean, I was listening the first time. Why did you repeat it? Why does the Torah repeat Eila shmos? I mean, it's right there. Repeat it in two psukim, one after the other. The answer is, what are they chosen for? They're chosen to be the Kohanim. Now, we have a Chicagoan who has risen to prominence, right? He's the Pope. I don't know what his original name was, but now he's Leo. Change his name. Why'd the Pope change his name? Hey, what was wrong with it? What was his name? Robert something? He's a White Sox fan, I told you. Even when the Cubs played the Sox, by the way, swept them, by the way, 3 straight. There were White Sox fans in Wrigley Field who were dressed up like the Pope. The Pope is known as a White Sox fan. How do you like that? Then one of the White Sox players hit a home run. right into the Cubs, into a group of Cub fans. A little kid, I think about 11 years old, took the baseball, threw it right back out on the field. Right? I don't keep a baseball hit by one of the White Sox. I loved it. So what do you go? Maybe they'll donate it to the church. They'll have it with the wafers and wine. But at the end of the day, he changes his name because the Catholics believe there's something called papal infallibility. Have you ever heard of that idea? The Pope can't be wrong. Whatever the Pope says, that means like this. He changes his name, according to their belief, because he's become a new essence. He's got a new neshama. He's not who he was. As soon as they decided to make him the Pope, the cardinals, the school of cardinals elect him as Pope, he's taken by a new spirit, and he's a completely different, he's left whoever he was. Now he is, and it's called papal infallibility. No matter what he poskins, it's right. Theoretically, he could change any law in Catholicism that he wants, and you can't argue with him because I got a, what do you call it? I have a connection. I got a special inspiration right off the cross, and a bruise, but a special inspiration right off the cross that this is, what do you call it? That this is what we're supposed to be doing. That's papal infallibility. In Torah, it's emphasizing we didn't change the names. These are the names of Moshe and Aaron's sons. These are the names of Aaron. Their names weren't changed when they became Kohanim. They stayed with the same names. They were anointed as the Kohanim, as the religious leaders, but the names stay the same because we're not fakers. And we know that we are not infallible. Mistakes could be made. By the greatest of rabbis, mistakes could be made, and certainly by the not greatest of anybody. We never claimed infallibility. That's the mistake that people looking in on us think that we're thinking. They think that we're thinking that because we wear a black hat, we're perfect. We never said that. The Torah that we were given says, don't murder. That means we're capable of murder. The Torah says, don't commit bestiality. That means we're capable. Otherwise, the Torah wouldn't have said it. That means we have those vulnerabilities. We don't have a high percentage of violation in these areas because we're living with the Torah, but we're not perfect. That's why they say whenever you see a religious man did something wrong, so the secular get, see, your guys are also, well, we never claimed that we were. On the other hand, let's look at numbers. I told my third time in prison. I was there. What's wrong, Vinny? You didn't know. You didn't want to suspect me, huh? Listen, I didn't know he was a cop. What should I tell you? The third time I was in prison, I was actually there as a guest. I was speaking in a prison here in Israel. Of all, there's hard criminals. These are violent criminals. Hard stuff. Of all the people there are a whole room full of them. Out of a room full of criminals, only two. One was religious with the beard and the payas, and one was more nationalistic with the knitted kippah. He was in jail because he took a gun and he was looking to kill Arabs. So they felt that he's better off in jail. When I asked the religious guy, why are you here? He's the only fruit. My mom, he looked like he stepped out of a shop in Mea Shearim. He looked like he would be the owner of a tourist shop in Mea Shearim. And I said, as I was talking, and every time I quoted a Gemara, he was sitting in the corner going like this, just kind of quoting the Gemara with me. So afterwards, I just turned to him. And these other guys were rough characters. I said to the guy, and I said to him in Hebrew, why are you here? So he looked at me, he gave a kind of smile. I said, I forgot to pay my taxes. He forgot, yeah. He wasn't there for violent crime. Forgot to pay his taxes. Okay, he should have paid his taxes. He should, whatever the case is. But we're not perfect. But look at the numbers. Let's compare the numbers. It's pretty obvious. That's what the Torah says. We don't change our names. We're not faking anybody. We have all the vulnerabilities of everybody else. It's just that we try to work on it and control ourselves. That's all. Okay, one last point. Take a look at okay. It's okay. Take a look at Perigil Pasuk Tes Zayin. Okay, so now on page 738. It's an interesting point. It's worth hearing. And I'm going to give you a piece of advice which you should pay me for. Well, there wasn't I'm waiting. Why wasn't it just, start throwing money. Okay, so I'll give you a piece of advice. Take a look, 738. Vaydabra Hashem al Moshe Bamidbar Sinei Lamar. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Pekodes b'nei Levi lebeis avosam lemishbechosam. Now we're going to count the Levites. Up until now, the Jewish people have been counted. Now we're counted the Levites. What age do we count the Jewish people from? What would the Torah say? From 20 years old. By the Leviim, Kol Zochar mi ben Chodesh v'mala tifkedem. All males above 1 month old. Now, it's a difference than counting the Jewish people. Why are we counting them from 1 month old? Take a look at Rashi. Mi ben Chodesh v'mala, it's the right column of Rashi, bottom line. Mi ben Chodesh v'mala, says Rashi, mi sheyotza michlal nefolim. Once he is out of the category of a nefel means a miscarriage. Now, obviously, if he was born, he wasn't miscarried. But until 30 days old, a baby is very vulnerable. At 30, he has a chazaka. He has established a status of being a viable human being. But up until the first 30 days are very vulnerable. So Rashi says, when do we count them? Once he hits 30 days, then he's already considered a viable human being. So then the Torah says, okay, now Moshe Rabbeinu, look at his reaction. Top line on the next column. Amar Rav Yehuda b'Rebbi Sholom. 1 second. Where is the Rashi? Oh, sorry, next pasuk. Vayivkod osa Moshe al pi Hashem. Next pasuk in the Chumash, we'll look at the Rashi. Moshe counted them by the word of Hashem, kasher tzuva, as he was commanded. Take a look at Rashi now on left column, 4 lines from the bottom. Al pi Hashem. Amar Moshe lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe said to Hashem, Heyachani nichnas l'socho aleim l'daz minyan yonkem. How could I go into their tents to know how many infants they have? When it counted the Jewish people, so you're counting from 20 years and up, it's not so difficult. Now you're telling me to count babies. How am I going to go into the tents and count babies? Amar la HaKadosh Baruch Hu, aseh ata shelcha, you do what you have to do. V'ani aseh sheli, I'll do what I have to do. So how did it work? Holach Moshe v'amar al Pesach. Moshe stood by the entrance of the tent. Ve'ashchina mekademes lefanov, and the God's divine presence went ahead of him. Ubas kol yotzei bin ha'oil, a heavenly voice would come out of the tent. Ve'omri kach ve'kach tinokos yesh v'oil. There's this amount of children in the tent. Lekach nemer al pi Hashem. That's why it says by the word of Hashem. The pasuk says Moshe counted on the word of Hashem. Okay. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, listen, I can't go into the tent. What's going on over here? Moshe Rabbeinu says, listen, number one of the Meforshim says, you don't just let anybody into your house. You got to know who it is. Maybe they don't want me in there. Maybe Moshe, in his humility, maybe they'll feel I'm a negative influence. Okay. I don't think too many people would be bothered if Moshe Rabbeinu knocked on the door. Moshe Rabbeinu knocked on the door. It's a lot better than some of the other people we let into the house. Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't be bothered by it. But the Torah is teaching us something else. What about respect for other people's privacy? I got to go into their house. Okay, so I'm Moshe Rabbeinu, so I'm the leader of the people. But this is private. This is your private dalar. This is your home. And it's a lesson to us to respect other people's privacy. Do you know that there's a halacha that you're not allowed to look through people's windows? When you're walking through, even in a place like Bnei Brak, which is the houses are built bumper to bumper. Have you been in Bnei Brak? Have you seen how crowded it is? And if you turn your head, you're going to be looking through a window. Some people love walking around at night because it's dark outside, lights are on, and inside you can see whatever you want. In New York, they have peeping Toms. People get guys with binoculars looking into other because the buildings are so crowded together. It's usur according to halacha. It's called hezek re'iyah. To look into somebody's yard or into somebody's windows to see what's going on, it's called visual damage. The same way that if you physically hit somebody, that's called nezek. If you look in somebody, hey, you're invading my privacy. And the Torah expects you not to. You have to respect other people's privacy. This also applies in conversation and discussion with people's lives. See, America's when you meet somebody, hi, how are you? Where are you from? It's like this very formal Jewish geography. Where are you from? Where do you daven? That sort of thing. In Israel, when you meet, say, hi, how much do you make? How much did your apartment cost? You know, get right down to the brass tacks. We cut to the chase in Israel. There's less respect, and that's considered socially okay. In America, you would never say, hi, how did you pay for your house? Where'd you get the money for your mortgage? In Israel, you know, you meet somebody, you say, oh, your kid got married? Wow, how did you get the money? It's different. Okay. But in times in life, you have to realize that back off. And if you see somebody is resistant to share something with you, share information, it's inappropriate to go and press it. What about his own privacy? What about his privacy? And so people ask, what do you do if somebody's badgering you for information that something you don't want to talk about? So I found there's a great line. If somebody says to you, I don't feel like discussing it. I don't feel, I heard you interviewed for a new job. What are the chances that you're going to be getting it? I don't feel like talking about it. So what do you say to somebody is to be kind of tactful, but to get out of it. I found what works. It's in my own best interest not to discuss it. Because everybody understands that people have their own, they say, I'm not saying you're doing something wrong. I'm saying about myself. That always works. It's in my own best interest not to discuss this. And it also gives it a kind of that aura of mystery. It's in my own best interest. I'm actually with the Shabbat. So I don't want to. I'm not at liberty to talk about it. CIA. If you say another word. So it's in my own best interest, and I respect that you have your own best interest. I also have my own best interest. And if somebody is badgering you, somebody's a pest. So you say to them, listen, instead of saying, listen, lay off, buddy. That's a kind of tactless. People don't like it. People feel attacked. I just say, it's in my own best interest not to talk about it. And then most people will understand that you'd rather not. All right. Okay.